Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And just like I mentioned in the previous review, this is the second film from the 70s and second movie that's based on a Frederick Forsyth novel. This one is called, as you can see from the title, The Odessa File. Now, when I was a teenager, I remember reading The Day of the Jackal. This movie and the book was pretty famous in my family. I forgot to mention that in the previous video. And after I read it as a teenager, I wanted to get more books of Frederick Forsyth, so I did when I went to the library next. And I don't remember the age, but I'm pretty sure it was not more than 15, uh, almost for sure, because of something that I'm going to tell you a little later. So, the Odessa File is another book that Frederick Forsyth wrote, and it was from 1972, so 1 year after The Day of the Jackal. The movie came out in 1974. It's a thriller movie, and it's starring John Voight, Mary Tam, Maximilian Schell, and Maria Schell. And I was really surprised to see Derek Jacobi in the movie as well. He's an actor I've seen in uh, a couple of other films, but I know him mostly from from an episode of Frasier where he you should watch it. It's fantastic. I mean, he makes it was really funny. So yeah, that's kind of what I know him from. So as I was saying, I read this novel the first time when I was around so between the ages of 13 and 15. Let's say that. Okay, I'm not really sure exactly when, but I do remember reading it taking it from the library, loving the novel, and I didn't know that there was a movie based on this until a few years ago. But uh, what happened was I read the Odessa File, and I loved the novel so much. I remember going for watching a movie in Malayalam, which is my local language, the state language of Kerala. And I remember it was in Trivandrum. I was with some of my cousins and my aunt, my cousins. We were actually in the theater watching a movie, and in between, when a particular scene was going on, I realized that this is actually based on the Odessa File. So those are the two biggest memories I have of this book. Excuse me. I'm not sure how many times I've actually read the novel. Probably at least a couple of times, because I did have The Day of the Jackal in my collection, but I don't think I had this one in my collection. But like I said, I do want to get these two novels back. Maybe a couple of other books of Frederick Forsyth as well, because these are books that you will never get tired of, to be honest. So, a young John Voight, I've never actually watched many of his movies before Anaconda in 1997. This movie was, of course, like I mentioned, came out in 1974. It is set in starting in 1963, the same day that Kennedy gets assassinated. You see John Voight, who plays Peter Miller, who is a young freelance reporter in Hamburg, which is then West Germany. And because he stops his car to listen to it, he he then runs into, well, not really run into, but he sees an ambulance going towards a particular area where an old Jewish person who was a former, concentration camp survivor from Auschwitz, he committed suicide. So he goes there, he tries to look at if there's a story for him to report on. But he meets a friend of his from the police force, and he tells him there's nothing. Oh, yeah, just an old Jew who committed suicide. I don't think there's any story. However, the next day, he calls him up and says, "Hey, I think you might be interested." They meet for lunch, and he gives him a journal that the Jew, whose name was Solomon Tauber. Solomon Tauber had kept a journal, and he had written about his experiences during the war, being in the concentration camp with his wife, how he was ashamed that he was not able to save his wife. His wife was taken away and killed, but he was one of the survivors. And he talks about the butcher of Riga from Auschwitz. He was taken to this is in Riga, not Auschwitz. And he talks about the SS officer who ran the camp, basically Edward Rochman, played by Maximilian Schell, and he does a brilliant job of giving you one of the most despicable people on earth. Brilliant acted job. And he talks about the atrocities that happened, the cruelty shown by the Nazis, and under Edward Roshman. And finally, when towards the end of the novel, he actually talks about the things that happened, including just before Germany got liberated and the Nazis were defeated. Now some of the Nazi officers were trying to escape, and among them, and they were actually trying to be stopped by the regular German soldier, a military soldier, an officer, who I think was a captain or something like that. He tried to stop them from taking over a boat that was meant for a ship, I think, that was meant for wounded soldiers. And he attacks Roshman, saying that you can't have the ship because this is meant for wounded soldiers. And Roshman shoots him dead, and he describes that in detail. As the novel finishes, Peter Miller is completely, like drained of color. He goes through the thing. He is somebody who's stunned, and he is a changed person. He decides he is going to hunt for Edward Roshman. He doesn't tell his girlfriend. He tries to get as much information as he can, and finally, what happens is he does try to track, a lot of things, but he gets captured by people from, I think it is Mossad. So there is this group called the Odessa, which is basically meant for ex-SS soldiers, basically the ex-Nazis who they have infiltrated all the, with change names. They've infiltrated different sections of society, military, judges, cops, all that stuff, entertainment, everything, and they're all under different names. So this group is very rich, and they try to protect everybody who are former Nazi soldiers, Nazi members and sympathizers, and try to give them different jobs, different lives, ways to escape being captured as Nazi sympathizers. So unfortunately, he runs into roadblocks on most places, except for when he goes to Vienna. He meets a person who is actually who has a lot of information about these people, and he tells him that Edward Roshman was actually seen by the Jew who committed suicide, Solomon Tauber, although people think he is actually dead. However, he is then captured by I think they are people of Mossad, Israelis basically, who want to capture as many former Nazi members as possible, including Roshman, and they grill him on the reasons for him trying to do so, and he tells them it's because he read this journal and he wants to do it. So he manages to convince them that he is of his authenticity. He really wants to do this and bring him to justice, and they set him up with the fake identity of a recently deceased, rather not killed, former Nazi man named Kolb, who actually died of cancer. But they faked the documents to make it seem like he was released and his cancer is in remission, and that he went to a clinic and all that stuff. So he manages to get his way to Edward Roshman, and he promises to get him some kind of, after a little bit of grilling, he decides, okay, I'll get you some fake documents and get you a job and all that stuff, because he's under hard times. However, there is an assassin that Edward Roshman has followed him, and they realize that he is actually not a Nazi member, and they try to kill him, but he managed to escape. And then he goes and confronts Edward Roshman at his building, and the nerve and atrocity, the behavior of this arrogant man when he tries to tell him that Germany is doing well only because of the actions that they did, and all that stuff. And finally, the revelation comes in that he is not killing him because of the Jews. He doesn't like the fact that the Nazis were there. I mean, Peter Miller is not there to avenge the Jews. He is, of course, sympathetic, as any decent person could be, but he didn't decide to come and hunt Edward Roshman and kill him because of what he did during the war and the atrocities that he committed, except for one thing, about the soldier. that soldier who he killed, the captain, he realizes because of a medal that was given, and at that time there were very few people who were killed in that particular area, and the time and the date and all that stuff matches with his own father. So Edward Rushman had killed his father. That is the reason why Peter Miller, who realizes he was a very young boy at the time, he didn't, in fact he was, I think, a toddler or something, he didn't realize, he never had a chance to actually spend enough time with his father. So he is there for revenge, and Edward Rushman tries to attack him with a hidden gun, but he is shot dead and killed. And Peter Miller goes back to his girlfriend, but back in Hamburg, he is in the towards the end they actually do mention that he was questioned, but he was never arrested, and he goes back to his life. That is a departure from the book. There's quite a few changes from the book, especially towards the latter half, but the basic storyline is the same. In the novel, he actually doesn't get to kill him. He is left for dead, but the assassin is killed because he steals the car, and somebody had also kept a bomb in it, and he steals Peter Miller's car, and there was a bomb in it, and he gets killed. Edward Rushman managed to escape. But yeah, for the movie, I guess they decided they wanted to have a more finite ending, and that's what they did, and I was very satisfied, to be honest. But yeah, there's a lot of changes, and the factory of Edward Rushman is actually killed. The Odessa File that Peter had with him is given to a lot of them are arrested, and a lot of people are brought to justice because of his actions. The only other thing was that there was Solomon Tauber had this request that if somebody reads it, if any Jewish person reads his book journal, if they could say some kind of prayer for him in the native land, and the Israelis who actually who help Peter Miller, one of them actually does that. Sorry, his old friend actually gets to do that. Sorry, I forgot about that. So that's a good ending for the movie. So do I like this? And I kind of prefer this ending because there is some justice, but of course it's a deviation from the novel. Once again, the novel is way superior than the book. Sorry, the novel is way superior than the movie, but the movie is pretty good in itself. Yes, just like The Day of the Jackal, there's kind of dragging in places. It's a little bit dull, but overall I do enjoy it quite a bit. Anything with Nazis in this kind of his context is something that I love a lot. I do not like Nazis in science fiction stuff, but otherwise I do love this kind of thing. So I give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. It is pretty enjoyable. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.